I'm with some very, very talented Indian creatives, artists, and editors, and so on and so forth. And this whole meeting has come about because of Sekhar Mukherjee. Sekhar Mukherjee is our Rambo. He is an animation film designer and graphic novelist. He is the festival director of Chitrakatha International Student Film Festival and the dean at NID AP. He won the Best Animation Teacher Award from CNBC TV 18. Debkumar Mitra is a legend. He is a comics curator, editor, reviewer, and does workshops on the narrative structures of graphic tales. Pinaki is a well-known and multiple award-winning graphic illustrator, designer who regularly works for leading publishing companies like Penguin, Random House, HarperCollins, and so on. Sarabjit Sen is a well-known cartoonist and filmmaker known for his comic strips in leading newspapers like the Economic Times, Ajkal in Kolkata, Dainik Jankatha, Dhaka, and China Daily, Beijing over the last few decades. Diving straight into it, this is regarding Longform. How did this happen?
The idea was to do something, but I did not reveal that to Pinaki till we met at Shorbo's book launch. There we quickly decided, and obviously we roped in Sekhar. Sekhar also I knew, but we never discussed this. So, but as we wrote in our first editorial, that independently 4 people were dreaming about the same project. To create something for the unsung and unspoken and unheard of talents of India. Pinaki and I and Shorbo and Sekhar, we decided that we need to do something, and we then mostly legwork with publishers, talking to them was done by Pinaki. I just did a bit of a liaison, and Shorbo and Sekhar did put their editor's cap on. We were very happy that we could put something that showcased some very good work. None of us have formally been editors of comics magazine, but I think between 4 of us, we have read more comics than the entire comics community in India have read. And we can safely say that. Safely say that. Okay? Because we have read stuff which no one reads. We got into stuff that no one cares, and I mean, all of us now have the experience of making people do comics. So we actually know how comics are created. We are happy to say that the gang is growing, and it will grow. It won't stay with 4 old men making their own plans in ivory towers.
It's a long form after all.
Long form is going to be ultimately the repository of those storytellers who have nowhere to go. You have something to tell, right? Tell it to us, and then we will see. Of course, we curate, because if we don't curate, it will be like horrible. But we curate. But at least, we will give you a patient hearing. We will hear what you are saying. We will try to select. We will actually try to say whether this works or for us. And if it doesn't work for us, we are not going to discourage them, telling that this is just unsellable. There is nothing called sellable or unsellable, right? So we used our clout in order to bring the magazine, but it is not our magazine. It is the magazine for all the young storytellers itching to tell a tale. What we need, and that's what we have all decided, is need an original story rooted in your own milieu, or at least embedded in your own imaginative world. If you have something worthwhile to tell, whether it's an animation, whether it's a graphics, whether it's something, you cannot be just imitative. You cannot just say that it's the foreign things that does well, the other things doesn't do well, because it's not about doing well. It's not about sellability. In a way, what Debuda was telling was right. We try to we just guide people to their stardom. We are there to provide that initial platform. So we are not here to provide big things. It will become big because of the nature, the fiber of story. The narrative, the strength is in the narrative.
Sekhar, I know Sekhar since his student days at NID. And Sekhar was very close to me, often full of many mischievous ideas and concepts and so many things which I loved sharing. But then Sekhar at the You know, at the fag end, when it was the time to act, Sekhar preferred lying down and going for a short nap. Sekhar and me, personally speaking, were increasingly upset and very uneasy about two things. One, the very concept of comics, the mainstream comics, quote unquote, underline. Please, these are all debatable words. And two, this mainstream vis-a-vis the quote unquote bigger quote unquote and bigger unquote and bigger stronger underline, the so-called alternative attempts to such mainstream jobs, those such alternatives that they preferred being some sort of an elitist island. And this sort of elitism just we felt we got the creeps, if you ask me. Because in the first volume, I too was thrilled to explore some kind of stuff like this about an artist named Amrita, because I have known her works, and she is very much into book art and installation and all that. She never thought about anything comics or anything like this, So just after paying a visit to her second or third exhibition, that I came to feel that her canvases or pieces are really bursting with texts and so many things to say.
NID gave that platform, and this comics as a workshop, it triggered like Delwin, one of our students, his comic story, he took it further as a graduation project. Because I always say that, a good project takes time, and academically, hypothetically, you get a chance to do something. That's why we give the platform, and that's why you need to have all this example of beautiful artistic festivals, whether it's comics or animation. And then we say that it's all pictorial narrative, graphic, sequential narrative, word, image, sound, etc., etc. So I never seen animation as a separate thing, film as a separate thing, music as a separate thing, and then Chitragatha born out of it. Right? It is also academically accepted now, to create this alternative visual language and giving confidence how important the story is. And back to Pinaki, where he says that story, and story. An honest story, It's really don't feel pressurized about what is your drawing style. Then only industry will be enriched with accepting different kind of visual style.
You've got this second book which has come out, right? And it's filled with some amazing stories as well. Now, for the young storyteller, or for the young artist, they want to submit more ideas to you, and they're like, oh wait, this should be more, there should be more, there should be more. How do you tackle that?
It will happen this year. It takes time because all of us are old. We think a little slowly now.
Okay.
There will be a long-form website this year, and it is going to happen. We are going to make it happen.
Yeah.
It won't be a very fancy website, but it will have all the stories that we want to put out. In addition to the annual, we are also trying to get into trying to work with different publishers, publishing different kind of anthologies, which right now we can't talk about them much, but individually we have contributed to different anthologies so that the spirit of long form becomes infectious and it spreads. There have been absolutely beginners. For example, there is a story in this collection from a foundation person who did this as a foundation project in NID, Alan Dev Vishnu's The Tale. There are people who have contributed who have never thought they will create comics, like Shuman Chaudhary, who did that for something else, and we picked it up and put it into it. There are 16 people who get the chance, 16 to 18 people who get a chance to get into the annual. But what we can assure, if the pandemics don't happen at this regularity, long form will be out possibly next year, the next annual.
Another thing that we need is like a dogs-like platform again. So, dogs is basically doing your own graphic stories. So what we need are more platforms, and maybe digital way is the way to go. But, you need to go digital with a bit of thinking, because if it is just digital, you are just uploading the story without thinking it. The whole idea of long form will lose value. We'll not just upload anything and everything. It should at least conform a bit to the ideology that we stand.
Some of the Western Europe and Northern American places where they use this non-fiction scientific illustrations and all these things as part of storytelling. Like I think first edition, one architect was there, in the first edition.
Nikhil.
So there is a story of space and building, and so these are the things I feel we are looking at to make long form also aging out from other comics.
There's this very interesting guy called Orgo Manna.
Orgo,
Right. Orgo in long form too, who uses science illustrations. He does a lot of science illustrations. There is one kind of a very interesting narrative regarding Jagadish Chandra Bose, the scientist.
Pretty sure getting four very very strong intellects together must have brought about a lot of humorous conversations, right? And there's a lot of sarcasm that flows across throughout as well. So how were those moments like? How did you actually get to a point of sort of agreeing on things through all of this?
We never agree.
We don't agree on anything. That's why variety. That's why
everybody has their own choices, and somehow it happens. I really don't know how it happens.
Well, it happens.
Sometimes it's not. We never fought. We could have actually be like Mike fight. We could have done an Ali Frazier kind of bout as well to decide. But somehow I don't know. It's magic. I think it's somehow we all know that we need to get pumped. So that's probably the only incentive. Otherwise,
there is so much strong love for comics in all of us that whatever happens, this thing will drive us.
In all the comic books that you've all read till now, is it possible to narrow down onto one or maybe two storytellers that you found Indian who you'd like to mention?
Both of them will be published in the next Longform.
That's like bounced it straight out.
And more seriously, there are a lot of people who, I mean, I can't say one or two. If you have Malik Sajjad, I like quite a lot. I like Apu Pen quite a lot. Maybe Arijit Sen, the River of Stories, I like a lot.
Okay.
Also Shoilo, Chakraborty. I think even he had wonderful works to do. So what I'm trying to say, concentrate here, is that I'm trying to go a bit further back, because we normally tend to think that comics in India is a kind of a new medium. It is not. Even if the great Aravindan has created big comics, and they are brilliant. One of my students, Diktoru, brought the books, and I didn't understand any bit of the language. What we need here is like translations. So I'm also, being an academic, I'm also looking at older works as well. One person who really excites me is Sharad Sharma. And I'll tell you, he has a concept called grassroots comics. He just, probably does something more than us. He takes pen and paper to, say, the remotest corner, give them pen and paper, and tell, say, the most marginalized people to tell their own story. That project, excites me.
Of course, for me, what I starkly enjoy and remember is Abid Surti's Bahadur. That somewhere I feel that it gives kind of a take me to the familiar zone. Like, and impact of Sholay also worked, like Chambal,
right,
something. And it is not blindly copied that template, some skeleton or shadow of template, but there is a little bit of unfinishedness. It's like, so that stays. That's something I really feel Abid Surti is one. Contemporary, I'll tell you one book which I still remember, create an impression in me, is only one book is written by her, and maybe in other collectives she was written maybe one or two, but this book is that Parishmita Singh, Hotel at the End of the The story of Manipur and...
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Wonderful. One thing, because we are from Mumbai, right? You are in Mumbai right now. One thing I also think is good, so there is this bookshop called Leaping Windows.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to think, if you can make that kind of culture more omnipresent in every kind of cities, or even, kind of smaller cities, reading comics and having a bit of bite here and there, maybe borrowing comics, because comics are also very costly sometimes. It's visual. So if we can have this borrowed comic library thing, we need a kind of a comics culture.
So thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. It was amazing. Like, this has been too good. Thank you for again agreeing in such short notice. It was fantastic that you did so.
No, thank you, Prateek. Because of you, we all gather and get to see each other.
Yeah.